When I wake up tomorrow morning, it won't just be Monday. It'll be the beginning of week 6 of my quarantine. In the past month or so, I've gone through pretty much all the emotions there are to go through about this, as I'm sure many of you guys have. And after hitting a particularly low point at the beginning of this week, I sat down and I made myself a bit of a do's and don'ts list that I've been sticking by for the past few days, and it seems to help manage my emotions when necessary. I'd like to share that list with you guys tonight because, after all, I'm Linda. This is Linda's World. This is Self-Care Sundays. And what better way to have self-care during quarantine than a checklist to keep your emotions in check? If you'd like to know what those things are, well, then just stick around because this episode of Linda's World starts right now. If you're a person who watches my channel on a regular basis, you'll know that at the beginning of this week, I was really going through it. In fact, my most recent video title is, I'm going through it. You see, I sat down on Tuesday with the best of intentions to make a Top 10 Tuesdays video for you guys, but not only could I barely put pen to paper to make the list, but I could barely get through 8 or 9 minutes on camera without crying. In fact, I did cry. I consider that video a fail. Honest and forthright, but a fail nonetheless, because the whole purpose of Linda's World is to make you feel better. I am not here for you to cancel me, although I do appreciate your kindness and consideration in the comment section. I want you to get the tools you need to live your best life. And because I wasn't exactly living mine, I was ill-equipped to give you those tools. Well, what did I do about that? I sat down and I made myself a list. A list of do's and don'ts, if you will. A list of things that I was doing that were working and things that I was doing that weren't working, so that I could figure out how to finagle my own mental health during this quarantine, and that way I could not only feel better in here, but I could better be of service to you guys. Because after all, Linda's World is an inspirational channel, a place for you to come to get the tools you need to live your best life, even when you're not exactly living your best life, right? So, I would like to share the list with you guys. Now, before I do, I would like to say that if you're not yet a member of Linda's World, if you're just finding this video by happenstance on the internet, why don't you go ahead and hit the subscribe button down below and hit the notification bell as well so you can get notifications when new videos drop to this channel. Now that I've said my piece, on with the list. So now I'm going to give you this list in terms of do's and don'ts. And my first one is actually pretty basic, but it's something that I think a lot of us might forget sometimes, which is do stay informed, but don't watch only news. What do I mean by that? I mean that it's important to keep abreast of the situation. Okay, the situation is grave and serious. Okay, so what you want to do is you want to watch the news. You want to stay informed. You want to know what different politicians are saying about the situation. You want to get information about the possibility of vaccines. You want to get information about what's banned and what's not banned, what's legal and what's not legal, what places are closed, what places are open, what are the current situations regarding social distancing, masks, and whatnot, okay? You definitely want to stay informed. But a huge red flag, a huge don't here, is don't exclusively watch the news. It'll kill you. Now, I would like to give you an example of something that happened 19 years ago. So on September 11th, 2001, I was at work when the towers fell. And when I came home, I put on the news because, you know, it was 9/11. And so I kept watching the same couple of things happen over and over. I kept watching plane number 1, plane number 2. Building fall down, building fall down. The same shell of a burnt out car. The same couple of bodies jumping. The same crying ladies. The same policemen, right? And at a certain point, I had 9/11 overload and my brain just could not tolerate any bad information anymore. And so what did I do? I put on Lifetime because they had Designing Women and the Golden Girls, because I needed a lift. I needed a break. And when I went back to work, actually, I was talking to a colleague of mine about it who was my friend back in the day, and she said that at about 9 o'clock she put on Comedy Central because she couldn't take it. And I said, well, I'm glad to know that I'm not the only one. There's a way to stay informed without being inundated by the news, because if you do, then your inner conspiracy theorists will come out, and it leads to anxiety, and it leads to depression, and it leads to, like, sometimes wrong information, because not all news outlets are always automatically correct. And so it is entirely possible for a person to become so inundated that they fall into, well, a depression such as mine. you know? Now, I'd like to point out that something is true now that wasn't true at 9/11, and that is our phones, okay, and our tablets. Our news is literally in the palm of our hand. My iPad is at my side to give you the do and don't list. This is my news outlet here. Okay, so just as much as the television that's across from me. Okay, so not only don't you want to watch television, but you don't want to click on every single article, because as I said, getting inundated with the information is not going to help anybody, unless of course your goal in life is to have a panic attack, right? Okay, now the next do and don't I have is do go out, but don't get too close. Social distancing doesn't necessarily mean that we need to be Tom Hanks in Castaway, okay? Social distancing does not mean that we have to stay holed up in our homes and literally sit in a chair for the next 4 months of our lives, okay? They said that we can go outside for essentials, and quite frankly, I take every opportunity I can, if an essential is necessary, to go outside. Because when I go outside, particularly when it's not raining outside, although it's been raining every day this week in Brooklyn, I put my AirPods in my ears and I walk down the block to go get my stuff. I got my mask on, I got my music in my ears, and when I go get my prescriptions, when I go get, foods and beverages and what have you, I remember what it's like to be in the outside. And sure, I can't go into the stores and I can't go, I can't walk around Old Navy or whatever like I used to, but I'm not sitting in a chair staring into space. I'm using my legs and it's wonderful. Those of us who have dogs who need walking, that's a perfect reason to go outside for a while. This does not mean you have to bombard your neighbor. We still want to, have the 6 feet and what have you. And I'm not suggesting that we don't socially distance, but I don't know that meant locking yourself in a closet. Getting outside for a couple of minutes each day will actually do you some good. Not for nothing. Of course, like I must say though, take what I'm saying with a grain of salt if you're a person who's in a high risk group, especially those of us over 65. Just saying. Okay. Do allow yourself to feel cheated, but don't allow yourself to wallow in it. What do I mean by that? We got stuck at a time when so many things were happening that were positive. People who were graduating from high school or college this year, little kindergartners who were having their little step-up ceremony, babies that were being born, and grandparents and aunts and uncles who were really excited to meet those little babies. People who had planned their weddings and engagement parties and sweet 16s and just all of the cool, awesome reasons to put on a dress or a tie and go outside and dance, these are some of the things that we were cheated out of this particular spring. And it's awful. And so, therefore, I'm not saying don't wallow in it. In fact, I'm sorry, I'm saying don't wallow in it. I'm not saying don't allow yourself to feel cheated. It's very easy for a person to fall victim to that thing that happens on the internet. That anonymous person shaming thing, it's not real, it's on your phone, so you could say whatever you want to another person. And so you tell them that they should feel guilty. It's like, who are you to complain about your prom? Who are you to complain about your wedding when there are people dying? Well, of course there are people dying, and I said this on an Instagram video a couple of weeks ago, you have every right to feel cheated out of whatever event was happening in your life or due to happen in your life that you were looking forward to that this quarantine took away from you, okay? But on the don't side, you don't want to wallow in that feeling of being cheated, nor do you want to wallow in the feeling of guilt that a person may give to you if you happen to post about it on the internet. Okay, you are a person and your feelings are real. And, I have an entire video up talking about how you're not a fraud. Well, neither are your feelings, okay? And if you were due to walk down the aisle in front of 200 people in a beautiful white dress, if you were waiting for 9 months to meet your grandchild, if you were, if you were counting on getting your diploma and shaking that principal's hand and going, look, Ma, I did it, right? And you don't get the chance to do that this spring, I'm really sorry. And you have every right to feel bad. But if you know what's good for you, you're not going to wallow in that bad feeling. Otherwise, you're going to wind up looking like I looked last week or worse. Okay? So feel it and then find a way to snap out of it. That's my advice. All right. The next one on the list is do buy necessities. Don't overshop. Now, this is particularly for the ladies, although gentlemen, I'm sure you can be guilty of this too. Obviously, we need to buy stuff. So, we need to buy milk, and we need to buy coffee, and we need to buy, meat, and we need to buy like bananas or whatever it is that we need to buy, right? But we don't need to spend our lives on Amazon or Etsy or Poshmark or eBay or whatever website we want to shop on, because the thing is, we have a lot of time on our hands, folks, and time on your hands usually equals whatever bad habit you overindulge in. So like food or drinking or illegal drugs or prescription drugs, or for some of us that drug is shopping. And so, I can't tell you how many, this is irrespective of quarantine, how many Amazon carts I've built and then hit save for later, because I realize I'm broke, and so now might be the time where we're, we don't know what day it is. We don't know if it's 11 a.m. or p.m. and we roll over in our beds, wearing the same PJs as we did 2 days ago and hit buy it now, right? And then all of a sudden you go, wait, I'm missing $75. What did I buy? And then you realize what comes to the door, like now is not the time to be buying things that we don't need if we can't afford it. Time on your hands doesn't necessarily mean extra time to shop. And it's funny because, I'm saying this and I'm thinking to myself, Linda, who do you want to convince, them or you? Oh, quarantine. What a thing. Okay, now there's 2 more on the list, and the next one I want to say has to do with something a little bit frivolous, but trust me when I say it's sound advice. Do take care of your appearance, but do not make any drastic changes. What do I mean by that? Well, it is really easy for us to get into the habit of saying, ladies and gentlemen both, well, I'm not going to see anybody, so what does it matter what I look like? Right? And so I don't know if you've noticed this with the amount of how many videos I've made since we've all been home together, or not together, I should say. But you've been looking at me, regular viewers again. I've always had a full face of makeup. Now, this is just a quirk in my life. Like I camped with my ex-husband for 5 days straight. I had a full face of makeup all 5 days. No one has seen me without makeup since 1992, and they never will again. Okay? But yet that's just personal to me. I just like it that way, but I can totally understand a person saying, well, seeing as how I'm just locked up in my house by myself, I'm not going to shower, or I'm not going to put on deodorant, or I'm not going to change my t-shirt, or I'm not going to wash my hair, or whatever the case may be. I'm not going to pluck my eyebrows, whatever. And so it's, I'm fond of saying, I've always thought that in our, ladies, in our 20s, we dress for men. In our 30s, we dress for other women. And by the time you get to your 40s, you dress for yourself. Well, I've kind of always dressed for myself. And, I'm in my 40s now. And this No Tears Left to Cry shirt is because I like it, And I realize I wore this again recently in a recent video. It fills me with happiness. No Tears Left to Cry is a positive message. So I put this on, And I have done my beauty rituals all throughout this quarantine. I wash my hair. I straighten it. I put the winged eyeliner on. I did my nails. In fact, folks, press on nails, okay? Literally nail glue and a plastic nail. I did it last night while watching Saturday Night Live at home. It took me literally 8 minutes. So, it's wonderful. But on the don't side, don't make any drastic appearance changes. Now, there's something that happens, I've noticed, this quarantine bravado, and it usually takes place after a couple of adult beverages, where we think we can cut our own hair, for example, or we think that we can work with hot wax on our flesh when we've never worked with hot wax before, or we can dye our own hair. We're going to dye our hair pink today, or blue, or whatever, or just name your beautification ritual. If you know how to do it, you go right ahead and do it. If it's something that's foreign to you, now is not the time to make drastic changes. Even though on a positive note, no one's going to be around to see it if you mess up. Still, it's just going to drag your mood down even further. Imagine you say, I think I'm going to try to have jet black hair. And you get your jet black dye and you put it on and it messes up your whole head. Okay, now you're depressed that you're in quarantine and your hair looks bad. So now you have 2 reasons to cry and it's going to make you wallow. Okay, so like I said, if you know what to do, you do it. If you don't know what to do, you don't. I knew how to cover my roots. I knew how to put on my nails. I did those things. I'm not going any further. Okay, so, do take care of your appearance. Not drastically. And I'd like to say before I leave this one behind to give you the last one, that taking care of your appearance, taking pride in how you look, even if you just put on your comfy suit, I'm not wearing a pantsuit here. This is just a sweatshirt. Like it boosts your mood a little bit. Like something about regularly showering and, changing your bra and putting on real pants that you would wear to the store, not just your PJ pants. Stuff like that. Like something about putting lipstick on. Like it just boosts your morale. It's a good quick morale booster. And so I just can't recommend it highly enough. I don't do this for other people. I do it for me. And I think I look quite nice. All right. And the last one on the list before I leave you is more of a social one. And that is that we should reach out to people, but we should not bombard them. What do I mean by that? Well, there's all these commercials now that says that while we're in this time when we're physically distanced, we shouldn't be distanced emotionally. That's wonderful, and that's true. And this is a time when phone carriers are giving us additional gigabytes of data so we could FaceTime people and text people and call people and email them and, send funny Facebook posts and remember that our, family and friends are there. And that's wonderful. Okay, we should be reaching out. But bombarding a person is actually a thing. And so specifically, I'm sure maybe this happens in the middle, but specifically I hear of people who are who are younger than myself or much older than myself who are feeling bombarded. So in the case of the younger people, Zoom parties are incredibly popular. People are okay, so we're drinking alcohol and playing music at 8:00 tonight. So we'll all go on Zoom together. So everyone's having a Zoom party. And there's all the windows open of Zoom and everybody's dancing around their house and they're throwing back their shots of vodka or whatever. And people are saying that they're feeling pressured to attend all these Zoom parties. A couple of young people I know said they've never been more popular in their lives and it's actually getting to them. They're waking up hungover. They're ooh, I have to click off at this party and go on to this friend's house. And they feel like they're just so bombarded with social engagements digitally that it's more than they ever had for real when they went out to the club, And in the case of people who are older than myself, a lot of people who are 60 and above are saying that, and it's wonderful that people are concerned, that family members are oh, don't leave out grandma, don't leave out grandpa. And so they get called to ask how they're doing and if they need groceries or whatever, which is great. At so many hours of the day that they can't watch their show, they can't go to sleep, they can't take a shower. My mother has a friend of hers who says that she wishes her daughter would call less because she's I'm trying to watch my program, I'm trying to take a nap, it's 10:30, I'm in bed, and she just feels kind of bombarded with socialization. So I guess the thing I've been talking around here is that socializing with people and checking in on people is absolutely a fundamental must during these times. But there is a way to do it to such a degree that that person feels socially bombarded even more so than when they were in quarantine. And I guess that's detrimental, So here we've reached the end of the rainbow. Okay, we've reached the end of my list. I tried to think of more, but then I said, no, I think that kind of covers it, And during just thinking these couple of things, this past couple of days, has really actually gone, it's gone really far. It's done wonders in helping my mental state. Now, I'm not going to tell you that I'm out of the woods personally. I still carry with me some depression over some of the things that I am currently missing out on. And there's tremendous amounts of uncertainty for the future of, my city and our nation and our world that concerns me, and I'm not exactly a happy camper. But yet, the more I practice the do's on my list and the more I practice my don'ts, I find that that's my own personal brand of quarantine self-care. And so I think that it could be beneficial to you guys. So I figured I'd share. And because Chloe the dog is getting a little restless there, I think you may have heard her bark just now, I'm going to sign off, and I'm just going to say, listen, whatever works for you works for you. But the thing is, if it's not, like it wasn't for me last week, and there goes my dog again, I think that's the time when you need to kind of retool it. And hopefully you can retool it using some of my suggestions, because I have to tell you, it really works. Chloe, no. That dog. She's my self-care. So, Top 10 Tuesdays is coming up a little later this week, and I will see you then. And until then, have a good one and stay safe.